Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
All right, we are back in full effect for Detroit is Different in the studios with somebody that definitely talks chopping business with me often. And she is a friend in arms of one of our best podcasts here on the network, the Piper Carter podcast. And when we're talking Piper Carter, if you do any business and you're seeing Piper around, you're also talking Nina Payne. Nina Payne, how are you today?
What up, though? What up, though?
Yes.
I'm wonderful.
All right, spry on a Saturday. Oh, no, this is a Sunday afternoon.
It's a Sunday.
First day of March.
The day the Lord has made.
Exactly. You were like singing, like I said, you got a little bit of front choir in you. I'm like back choir corner.
That's right. Back choir corner.
Get back
right there. Soprano, alto.
Exactly. It's like, just hit with that.
That's about it. Don't ask me to do a solo.
Yes. No solos. No solos over here. So we're going to start this Detroit is Different how we usually start it. Your family in Detroit. What led your family to come to Detroit?
You know, we were East Siders. I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit, Warner, Connor, Fairview. What up, though? And my dad had an opportunity, chasing the American dream, and got an opportunity to move, and he chose Cincinnati. And so when I was 11, going on 12 years old, we uprooted everything that we knew and moved to an all-white neighborhood in the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And we were the first black family to do that. That comes with its own range of challenges.
Okay.
5 years later, after being called the N-word and fighting for your life almost every day, we came home from school one day. My mom had her bags packed in the car running, and she said, "Get in, we're going home." And I said, "Home?" And she said, "Yeah, we're going back to Detroit."
Wow.
And so,
okay, so you have the opposite Charlie Beckham story, and also my dad's story, as my dad is from Cincinnati, South Avondale. I got family down. My dad's driving back from Cincinnati right now.
Oh, wow.
With my granny. And anybody that knows, like I say, it's like Cincinnati is the South as far as I'm concerned.
It is the South, baby. It's the South. My mom's family's from Cincinnati.
Okay.
So that was one of the reasons why we chose Cincinnati, although we were a good 45 minutes from them because they lived downtown and we lived out in the burbs, like,
yes, exactly.
like rural burbs area.
Yeah.
You know. So we that's a Cincinnati story. That's a whole nother segment. If we want to talk about racism and, first blacks. It is Black History Month. Oh, dang, we a day off.
I mean, it's but even with it, like the racial tensions that existed that took the jazz festival away. Yeah, classic jazz festival in Cincinnati. My grandma tells me about the first jazz festival. She saw Coltrane, she saw Miles Davis and Nina Simone, all just sitting on the lawn for free. And what pulled that away, that's grown to one of the biggest cultural events, I'd say, outside of New Orleans in the nation, maybe internationally. And it was taken away for some of the racial tensions that have always existed. People know of the classic Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott. Right. But if you understand the culture of Cincinnati, you understand kind of what's going on. My dad's a UC grad, a Bearcat. So definitely have ties in Cincinnati with some of those country folks that,
Did you live in Cincinnati as well?
Nah, but visited enough to know. Yeah, it's a different form of racial divide in a city like that versus a city like Detroit with so much blackness. Yeah. So your family was already here. Where did your family come from? If your mom's family is in Cincinnati, your dad's family, where are they from?
Originally from Arkansas.
Arkansas. So that's like, okay, definitely that makes sense. So they're further west.
Oh yeah.
And this kind of goes back to my family. My dad's was born in Little Rock. So where at in Arkansas?
I can't remember.
You don't even know?
I don't know. And I'll tell you why I don't know. Okay. Well, I'll tell you why I'm going to say I don't know. Is the story of my dad's family is my mom, his mom's side of the family came from the other side of the tracks. And what I mean by that is there was, land ownership and business ownership and some other things happening. And when she met my grandfather, he was from the other side of the tracks. And basically the story goes that if you marry him, we will disown you. And if you take his name.
Wow.
And love prevailed. And after some threats, after they got married, they had to move and they came up here. And there were some things that happened that we can't all talk about because, you know, we all got them stories. But they came up here. And so like the history of it, when we started to try to contact them and to try to regain relationship, they want nothing to do with
even till today.
Even till today.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, I guess, the affluent, I'm guessing.
Very affluent.
South,
very affluent.
And a lot of the affluent South, I don't know if people have ever read this book, Our Kind of People goes into that talks about passing or the colorism that exists more oftentimes highlighted in Latino culture, but definitely in Black culture too.
Definitely
so like a lot of Black people were passing for white.
Absolutely.
And were able to manipulate and move around in certain societies. So
and we definitely had that just from pictures that we know and the stories my grandmother used to tell us when she was around, that passed down to my dad and the things that he told us and us trying to take a trip down there, you know, a couple of times throughout my childhood and Dad trying to reconnect with his family and basically them shutting the door in his face. And so and the story goes, they always thought that people wanted something from them as opposed to just knowing who their family was, you know. And so we have a lot of passers. The story goes on my grandmother's side of the family.
And yeah, to this day, like a lot of people say, like, I guess one of the most infamous things is Babe Ruth. Like, Babe Ruth was Black. You know, a lot of people say that. And it's like, you look at him and then you look at certain pictures and it's like, is he Black? Like, I don't know. But one of those things.
Yeah,
and this is part of the tapestry of the Black story. So you went to Cincinnati for a while, then made your way back to Detroit. Yep. So when you came back to Detroit, what was the feel? What were you into?
When I came back to Detroit, I didn't know my Blackness. We were in Cincinnati during puberty years. And so as much as my mom tried to get us to read Essence and Ebony and watch Black shows on TV, we were hanging out with all white girls and me and my sister. And so we were into what they were into, which is makeup and boys and oh my God. And so like the language was different. And the interesting thing, we first got down there, it was the challenge of who am I around all of these people, you know, fighting every day on the street on the east side of Detroit. I found myself in the same place, just fighting for different reasons. And then realizing that people were befriending us because we were Black and they could get something from us. Like all of that stuff didn't even come to pass until we were older and we had to like process it all. But I had white girlfriends that I had one up the street who wanted to befriend me because her dad was a Hell's Angel and she was being rebellious. I had another girlfriend who wanted to meet Black guys and so she befriended me. I had one girl, Chris Hitz, who thought I was a charity case and would give me money every day. And coming from east side Detroit, I welcomed all of that. And so every day I came to school, she had something new for me, some new clothes, new anything. Anything I wanted, she would give me. And so I hustled her for some years. Just the nature of the beast of knowing how to do that growing up on the east side of Detroit. And so, but after some years of being down there, we were conditioned into...
You assimilated into...
Yeah, man, we assimilated. So when we come back to Detroit to visit, you know, and hang out with our cousins, you know, they would be like, say something, and just, you know, clowned us constantly because our language is different. You know, so we had to, that transition of coming back was difficult. You know.
And you said your mom was like, yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah.
So she must have had a rough time just adjusting to the culture there as well.
Yeah, we all did. She worked in the banking industry. And so she managed one of the banks up the street and she would have difficulty with clients every single day. You know, they didn't want her handling their money. They didn't want to have any conversations with her. If a situation got elevated to her, they didn't want to talk to her. They didn't want to talk to the president of the company. So she was dealing with racism in that way. We were dealing with racism at the school systems and, you know, the teachers call us the N-word, all sorts of stuff. My brother was dealing with, he was the first Black person to graduate from their high schools. He was in the paper. And so the white girls down there at that time wanted a taste of him. And the uncles and the cousins and the brothers knew that. And so he had a difficult time just fighting his way through and trying to stay clear of the drama that came with being the only Black man in high school. And my dad was dealing with racism in his own way, but very, very at executive level at Ford. And so it was a different kind of thing. It wasn't directly in your face like we were dealing with every day. And so he just knew that was part of the process. But he it wasn't confrontational. It was, always, he was an executive already. You know what I mean? So he had a different way. So he was dealing with it. We were everyday fighting.
So as time has gone on, did your dad open up about some of the things he was facing and just more so holding that face? Because that era of black men especially were looked at in some ways as like, Jackie Robinson, Jesse Owens. Like if you were a barrier breaker, black women and black men, some of it is like, I gotta deal with this. Like I don't like the story of Jackie Robinson, though I respect it. I don't like the story because it's like I don't know if I'm gonna have somebody spit on me, dig their cleats into me. But it's almost like if that person doesn't have the dignity, the pride, the I guess
he wouldn't be a barrier.
The resolve,
Yeah. And my dad, we always clown and say, my dad was a thug. And so he grew up in tough times and was one of the only ones in his family who got out through education. So, but he always had street in him.
Yeah.
So he would use his skills to manipulate and hustle even at an executive level. Yeah. So he always felt in control. And he always felt like, you're not going to get over on me. I'm always going to win, kind of mentality. And we didn't find out until later. But he definitely broke barriers. But he was so determined to get through it, to make it, to chase the American dream, to prove anybody wrong that said he couldn't do it, growing up in poverty, that he was a little blindsided with family issues, I would say. And so when Mom, and she took off and she left him down there, like, okay, you handle it. I'm headed back up to Detroit with the girls. And he finally came around. But, it was just one of those moments where he was just tunnel vision. I get my motivation and my drive from my dad.
Okay. So we're talking about that same motivation and drive. You're back in Detroit, on to Detroit. Where are you in school when you come back?
Well, we lived in the summer. We lived 7 Mile and Washburn area. So we were signed up to go to Mumford. We stayed with relatives and family that whole summer, just trying to figure it out. My mom was trying to, get her bearings. Didn't know. We just left. No plan.
Cincinnati was
she
not
said we got to get the heck out of here.
Exactly.
They had threw a brick through our window like a week before that, with the nigga go home wrapped around the brick, and they were burning stuff on our lawn. It got that bad, and so she had just had enough, and so we were just staying with family, and then we finally moved in with my sister, and we got registered at Mumford, and we went to school one day. So on the way to school, I got into it with some girl, and I was on the way home. I went to school, registered, and on the way home, some girl said something that I was looking at somebody and blah, blah, blah. And now we scrapping in the middle of Washburn. It was like, here I am again, fighting for no reason. And so right at that time, and we didn't know that at the time, my dad was trying to woo my mom back. And so he had sold the house in Cincinnati, moved up here, bought a house, and was trying to get her to come back or whatever. And so he bought the house in Southfield Lathrop.
Okay.
And so we ended up that one day going to register, coming out of Mumford, and moving from there to a hotel to stay with him.
Okay. All right. And then this era of Southfield Lathrop from there, which has its own which has its own culture around it too, especially then. Like I was driving down the street and I was like, man, this is university prep now. But I remember when it was Southfield High and Lathrop High and the rivalry that existed and what Southfield was in the 80s for like a class of, I would say, like the Oakland County class of kind of what Royal Oak Township once was for black people. And black people of some affluence and influence where, it was some prominence in the 80s,
There was. And that was that, that exodus that started from Detroit to, north suburbs. And a lot of people landed in the Southfield area because of that. And so, and then trickled up to Lathrop, and now it's all, it's all changed over the years. But I remember at the time we were so excited just to be around black people. It was like, going to Lathrop, but it was probably 15% black at that time. We were just excited. And there was just people that looked like us, and like people, and we had Arabs and, Jewish and, Chaldeans and Indians, and, it was just like, it was so exciting. I remember we wanted to go to Southfield High because it was a lot more black people.
Yeah, it was.
But Dad was like, no. So the house was in Lathrop. So we ended up going to Lathrup High School,
Okay.
class of 87.
From there, where do you go?
Well, I went to Eastern Michigan University
Okay.
and graduated in business in 4 years later, in and out in 4.
Okay. Now, this is where I'm definitely going to ask about how I know you. I know you're into music and working with artists, and you have such a business acumen for organization, for how you like things done, dotting I's, crossing T's, and working with artists is definitely a different flow where it's very, it can be very emotion based. It can be very, very much on feel, very much on energy, not necessarily so much in business. So you went to school for business.
I did.
Your father's an executive. Your mom's working in a bank. You're seeing people with the business acumen around you all the time, So I can only imagine probably as a kid, you may have had like some entrepreneurial journeys and everything too. Were you starting any businesses when you were a kid?
I did not. No, I got the bug early, but I didn't know what it was. I remember thinking, man, it would be great to be a truck driver. I know, right? And my dad looking at me like, daughter of mine's going to be a truck driver. But in my thought process, it was they own the truck, they live in the truck, they can drive the truck wherever they want. There was freedom in the truck
that's
driving.
Like a management mind. And I was actually a truck driver at one point.
Were you?
So it's like,
I didn't know, of course, all the details to that, but it just, we had an uncle that was, and it was like one of those things, like, you live back here in the back of the truck?
It's rent free.
I don't have to, right? You know what I'm saying?
All money. Yes.
It made sense to me, and so I kept that like as a thing, like it represented I could do whatever I wanted to do and make my money the way I wanted to make it, and I didn't know that was entrepreneurship.
The freedom.
Freedom was one of those feelings that I've always chased. Okay. And so coming out of school, well, let me back up. When I was in high school, the story goes, I did events. So I would do graduation parties, birthday parties, baby showers in high school, that sort of thing.
So people would come to you to plan that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And not really even understanding that was a gift.
Were you like just had a party and like with the family and they're like, you gonna do my birthday? And then it was like, I guess.
It started because I was the friend in our friend group who always did all the management.
So you knew the most boys. You got along with the most boys, basically.
I did.
I'm guessing.
I did.
So they're like, I have Nina do it, and then Reggie gonna come, and I like Reggie.
It was like that. Or where we're going this weekend, I'd plan a whole itinerary out. If we were traveling, which we did, I tried to travel a lot in high school. Doing that itinerary, making the calls, organizing, putting the schedule together. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do this, and it got to be the point where they, when there was a question, how are we going to do it or what are we going to do? They look at me and I started to get upset, like, do something. Why you don't do it? I didn't understand the gift at that time. And so that led to, just throwing parties and events and stuff like that for people. And a graduation party that I did, one of the dads gave me $50.
Okay.
Her dad was like, man, we couldn't have done this without you. We're so grateful that you're here, kind of thing. And it came so easy to me that it wasn't a big deal. But when he gave me the $50, I was like,
your first business dollar. You remembered it. It's like, this is going to go to Northland.
I was like, pop, pop, pop.
Yeah, exactly.
I was somebody. So I kind of put a pin in that. Like, okay, this is something that I can actually do for a living. I can make money off of it. So when I went to college for business, it wasn't necessary to be an entrepreneur. I just knew that I wanted to understand how business worked.
Okay.
And when I got up there, I just ended up migrating to people who were throwing parties and migrating to people who were throwing events and ended up a part of those teams.
What was the culture at Eastern like then? Because it's a different type of campus, and it's changed a little bit over time. Just for me knowing it, I feel like the culture has changed. But what was it like for you when you got there?
When I got up there, I knew a few people. I didn't know a whole lot of people, but I was a different breed of folk. Now that I know other people who've gone through the same process, my whole goal to go to school was to get out of school.
Okay.
So my focus was to go. I was able to get half of my school paid for, but I had to work for the other half. Okay. So I worked full time. I hustled a couple other jobs. I hustled some people. I did some events, and I went to school. Okay. That was it. I didn't really get involved in any extracurricular organizations. I didn't pledge anything. All my friends did all of that, but I just was getting out. That was part of my. So I was focused on getting it out in 4 years. Period. Okay. And starting my business career because I wanted to, get started early. I wanted to start working, which I did. I started working at 14, but I've always wanted to work instead of go to school. Okay. But I had promised my dad, and I knew it was an opportunity for me to go. So I went to school. But it wasn't like I had this great college experience where I was, involved in all of the activities. I wasn't that girl.
Okay.
Well, I had a great college experience, don't get me wrong, but just wasn't plugged in like that.
Okay. So from college, where are you working?
Well, graduated from college, sent out about 100 resumes, and nada. Nada. And back then the climate was you graduate from college, you go into a manager trainee program, right? And they would pay for you to be trained and yada, which is kind of what I expected. But it was changing as I was graduating. And so went on a lot of interviews and, just couldn't land the gig. And it was like one of those first moments you're like, am I supposed to be trying to get these jobs kind of thing? And so, I have a story where I interviewed with Price Waterhouse down at the Renaissance Center and landed a job. I was so excited, right? And they were starting a new department or doing something like that. And by the time I got home from the interview, I had a voicemail on my answer machine. Back then they had answering machines. My answer machine that said they had downsized the department and eliminated my position.
Wow. Yeah. So this is like almost the start of what's happening in America, transitioning really from more of an industrial age into the information technology age, which did your father even talk about this? Because him working in the automotive industry, I'm sure he saw a lot of that as well.
He didn't talk about it too much. He kept a lot of the stuff that he did and dealt with at the job from that perspective to himself. Okay. But he was executive trainee, so he would train executives and managers and stuff like that. So he was not necessarily touching anything automotive or engineer wise, but he was more in person to person in training. Yeah. So but I watched how the industry changed, and one of the things that he would not do for us is allow us to work at one of the big three.
That's interesting. So he did knew something.
That. Yeah, he just didn't want his whole point was not to ever have us working in factories. But then as we started to get older, I'm like, well, Dad, you can put a word in. He was like, you got to find your own dream. And I was like, okay, asshole.
Yeah, you were like, yo, you could plug me in, fam.
He could. He definitely could plug us in. He didn't do that for any of us. There's 4 of us as children. So, yeah, he's gone on to heaven. So I can't answer why he decided. But I think he just he didn't want to give anybody a handout. And he wanted, he was one of those people I picked up myself by the bootstraps. So you got to do the same thing kind of thing.
Yeah.
School of hard knocks.
And I definitely am one that I never have believed in the whole bootstrap theory, even though I know America pushes that whole concept of the rugged individual. Everybody is tying to relationships for opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at these Mike Bloomberg commercials, it looks like he's just like a guy that just fumbled his way out of
poverty.
Out of poverty to become a billionaire. It's like, seriously, bro. Donald Trump too. It's like, seriously, bro. Come on.
There's always someone. And so, but Dad will tell that story, and like he was the only one. So I don't know what to tell you.
So, so from the feel at as you're looking at the landscape in that field, what led you in to work with artists?
Well, interesting enough, one of the jobs I had in college was managing dry cleaners. And so I've always been in a management or leadership position majority of my life. And so I would manage dry cleaners because I could hustle. So in managing the dry cleaners, I can also press. And if pressing you got paid by the piece. And so if I would get one salary here, but I would go and do pressing if I need some extra money. Yeah. So, and I was an amazing presser. But anyway, so I was managing a dry cleaners in Southfield, and I took care of all my clients. They loved me, and I had a client by the name of Ken Bell, and Ken Bell was a DJ on 92.3 back in the day. Matter of fact, we just reconnected on Facebook.
Ain't that something?
It is something. And he was like the guy. UBQ, doing all of the parties. He was that guy.
UBQ.
UBQs back in the day. And so I told him, he knew me and knew my story. And one day he came in, he was like, I forgot to tell you, my sons are starting a group. And with your experience, because in college I did some parties, I also did a concert. And so I fell in love with the production end of just developing shows in college. And so he was like, you would be a great road manager for them.
Wow. Now, let me ask you this. Two things. What was the show you did in college? But also, I want you to speak about just your readiness and preparation, even in the capacity of pressing and cleaning clothes, created that opportunity. As I said, nobody pulls themselves up completely from the bootstraps, but he was observing your skill set in doing that. So almost having like the tenacity and your commitment to task created an opportunity from you.
I think it was a couple things. I think it was the fact of the way that I always treated my customers when they came in, that it allowed for conversation and getting to know people a little bit deeper. My commitment to excellence. So if they had a problem, I was Johnny on the spot to make sure that I handled it. Because I always wanted to treat people like I wanted to be treated. And that's kind of how I've kind of honed my business after that model. And I know that's a biblical principle, but it's true for me. Like I want to be treated a certain way, and I want to be able to treat people the same. And so I think that came through in the conversations and then the skill set behind the things that I've learned. I just always felt like things were going to happen for me as long as I kept pushing for it.
Wow.
I just never believed it wouldn't. So even in that doubtful moment of not being able to get that job that I wanted and chasing that, now I understood that it wasn't for me, but another one is for me. Yeah. And it's just, that door closed and, okay, let me look over here.
Present themselves.
I never really gotten to a place of, woe was me, nothing's going to happen for me kind of space. There's just so much going on. There's so many opportunities out here. There's just so many things to learn and do and show up for. And I think just being that person for me has allowed me to have those opportunities. So when he asked me to be a road manager, it was like, I don't know how to do that, but I'll figure it out. And that's always kind of been my theme.
Wow.
It's like, I don't know how to do a concert, but I'll figure it out.
What was the concert you did?
We did a promotional concert where Queen Latifah came in and threw. This was back in 87, 88.
Oh, so this was like early Latifah.
This is really early. She was actually so this is how the story goes. We were doing these parties, and we got into doing female exotic and male exotic parties because there's a lot of money to be made in that market. But it got twisted and went left, and I had to get out of that because I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah, I feel that.
Or get killed. So
we don't
I got out of that. I got out of that. And these two guys from U of M had sought me out because they were also throwing parties at U of M. And they were like, hey, we're going to throw a concert. And they knew that at those parties that I was throwing that I would also do like, poetry or, having a singer come or, juggler, whatever, entertainment in addition to, and a lot of them necessarily didn't have female exotic or male, just a party at a DJ and stuff like that. So like being able to kind of create some other experiences for people. And that led to falling in love with just the building of a production.
Okay.
And so then these guys and I connected and said, okay, well, let's throw a concert. And it was like, what do we do? And one of the guys had some relationships with the industry, but I didn't have any relationships with the industry, and the middle guy didn't have any relationships either. So the other guy, at this time, you couldn't look it up on the internet.
No.
You had to know somebody to know somebody. So we spent a lot of time calling and, trying to figure some things out. And one of the guys, the one guy who knew people in the industry, got the information that Queen... First, we had to do a list of who we wanted, blah, blah, blah. But he got the information that Queen Latifah was coming to Cleveland, and she was on this promotional tour. I didn't even know what a promotional tour was at that time. So you know what I mean? Like, it was just all very whatever. But if we could get to Cleveland, talk to her, and see if she could swing by. She was already coming to Detroit, and we need her to come 40 minutes and swing through. And I couldn't go, but so the guy he drove down there and talked to somebody and worked it out. And she came through, MC Bree came through, and we did a DJ, and we only made a couple dollars and broke even, and we learned how to market, got the flyers out. It was a whole experience. And at that time I was becoming a junior in college, so I was like, this was fun. but I got to get back to school.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I was being a little distracted, but the experience was amazing. First time I had ever heard of a writer. Being able to have the right equipment, having to spend extra money that you didn't even think you would have to spend. That was back in college. That was a long time ago. And so
what was on MC Breed's writer?
He didn't have a writer
at the time.
Queen Latifah had a writer though, but he didn't have a writer.
He was like a bottle of Hennessy. VSOP.
And he too was doing some promotional thing. So like we kind of figured out this promotional angle was really awesome. If you had the timing had to be right. So we built that all around the fact that she was coming. Like if it had been somebody else and we'd have done it on a different date, to just try to figure out how not to have to pay the full fee.
Yeah.
Right. And get them to come by, and we would promote the heck out of them and develop fan base and all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
So I learned it.
So from there, you're on the road with Kim Bell's group.
I am, and they were called the Y, WHYY.
WHYY. Okay,
Yeah.
what type of music?
They were a cover band.
Okay, they were a cover band, and they
did old school Minnie Riperton. What's that guy's name? I can't remember. Makes no. Anyway, so they did a bunch of stuff that old school songs.
Okay.
So it was 2 women, 4 guys.
Okay.
One high voice singer, one low voice singer, a rapper. It was so bad. It was so bad. They were bad. So yeah, I was road manager for the Y, but I learned a lot.
Okay.
Right. So
how long did you do that?
Gosh, I would say probably a year. So it was a whole summer.
And at that age, a year is a long time.
It was a long time. So I did,
especially on the road.
So we had to do all the promo, buy all the clothes, get all of the branding right, and we had a drug dealer guy that was a sponsor. Wait.
Now, in reality,
what up, Mario?
In reality, I mean, to just be honest, the entertainment industry has been sponsored by drug dealer guys.
Yeah, you just can't say that, right?
Or liquor guys, or like some form of criminality. And
this guy was amazing
because you can wash. Obviously, I mean, it's a play that people wash money.
Yeah, he funded everything. He funded the photo shoots, the video. I gotta find that stuff. We'd go to Eastland and just pick out whatever, and he would pay for it. And so I was part of all of that. So I learned branding. I learned. The music production as far as videos. And
what about just the science of dealing with artists? Because 6 personalities.
Yeah.
From town to town, and who sings first, who doesn't sing first, who's coming in late, who's flirting with the lady or the guy.
Oh gosh.
From town to town. Like, how did you manage all that?
Well, I'll take it like this. We this cover group had a fan base.
Okay.
And the fan base would follow them wherever they went.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Wow.
And I knew that
Angie. What you doing here, Angie?
It was crazy. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it at all. But they had a fan base. And so I would find myself, because about me is I have a job to do and I'm going to do it. That's just kind of how I work. And so I knew that my job was to get them to the event safely, get them on stage, get a check, and let's go kind of thing. And so I found myself in pulling girls out of hotel rooms, naked girls out of hotel rooms. I found me dealing with the drug situation with a couple of the guys, fighting with the promoters to get a check.
Yeah.
Like having to, I pulled all of the stuff that I learned on the east side of Detroit, dealing with racism in Cincinnati. I pulled from all of that to be able to, be effective in that area. So if you and I have a confrontation, we can handle it one or two ways. We can be really kind-hearted and professional about it, or we can go street. And I had, a little bit of both in me to be able to pull off some of that stuff.
Now, I was having this discussion with entertainment attorney Howard Hertz, too.
Oh, and, Howard.
Just the discussion of dealing with artists when they're struggling, because artists have many insecurities. So sometimes the drugs are to deal and cope with that. And sometimes the drugs are to get up and to go to sleep. So it's like, I need an upper to up, down to sleep. And dealing with an artist as they're going through, it can be tough.
It can be really tough. And I'm fortunate I didn't have to deal with it to that extreme. In the case that I was in, was more just partying, as opposed to an addiction issue or it being really heavy. There was nothing like, nobody was sticking needles in their arms or anything like that. Not then.
You didn't notice, or you didn't see
I
it,
didn't
or they
knew
dealt
that.
with
I just
it
needed
in
you
a
to get on
manageable
stage,
way.
do your job, and then you could do whatever you
Execute.
wanted.
Yes, and then you can be ready for the next time.
Yeah, and so we had a young lady who decided she didn't want to perform. But only got two background singers, only one of them.
That happens too.
And she had a fight with her boyfriend. She was having a fit, and we were in the backstage, and we needed to be on stage in 15 minutes. And I fired her.
Wow.
So I fired her and put on her outfit and her really low-cut bodysuit.
And you was on stage singing.
And I did her whole routine from stop to
we need to find that video. We need to find
we
that
don't.
video.
They had to put me in and pin everything in. It was some
biker shorts singing.
It was a bodysuit, all revealing and shimmying and shaking and stuff. And I was like, "This is." But I knew the routine. I taught it to him. So doing what I needed to do to get the job done.
Okay,
that's an example of that.
And from there, like, I mean, you're so young at the time. Did this connect as like, I want to keep doing this? Like, what were you thinking at the time?
Well, I was thinking that I'll tell you exactly what I was thinking. On a road trip back from Valdosta, Georgia, we were in a van driving.
Georgia.
Valdosta. And they had a huge fan base in Valdosta, Georgia.
Ain't that something? I'm sure they got a Cracker Barrel down there.
In the sticks, all black people. Really interesting. But I was in a van and we were headed back, and I just remember thinking, Lord, this is not it. The van smelled like boy. I had $20 in my pocket because I had to pay for extra stuff that wasn't on the thing, and I couldn't get in touch with Mario, which was the funder. And I just remember I enjoyed what I'm doing, but the how I'm doing it and who I'm doing it for, like I just it wasn't right, and I'm not making any money.
Yeah,
and I've got bills, and I took off from work to do all these tours and stuff like that, and so I go back to the cleaners whenever I needed to, but I was living with a roommate at the time who was my best friend, and she was pretty much footing the bills.
Now, that's the other reality of this entertainment industry. Oh, yeah. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
A lot of smoke and mirrors.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So it's money that's passing out, but it's so many people that in segments that need to get paid from the... First off, tickets need to move.
Yep.
So like the ticket gate, which is kind of already like an industry within its own for Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
The venues themselves, which is kind of an industry with its own through Live Nation. The where you book the artists is Morris. Man, most of the artists are signed to the same booking agency as well. So from tickets to venue to promotions, to production, to the actual maintenance of the facility. It's a lot of people's hands that go between before you get paid.
Yes.
Especially if you're a part of the management and production team.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it was rough. Yeah. The beginning parts were rough because I didn't really know how to move in that area.
Yeah.
I just knew that the artists need to get paid. And so, and then I had a fee. And so, but if anything went wrong, money had to come out of those fees in order to take care of stuff.
Yeah.
And so like budgeting wasn't a strong point of our producer, of the funder. He didn't budget well. And so like being able to know the expenses between Detroit and Pittsburgh and Valdosta and being able to do that. So I started to learn how to estimate and forecast.
And this is pre-internet too, so it's not like you can price line and stuff like
you're
that.
On the phone
so like
constantly.
getting just booking a hotel room, knowing where you're gonna stop,
and you had to take their word for it. Yeah. Like, so if you're booking a hotels from Detroit all the way down to Miami, if you didn't know the hotel or you didn't know anybody who stayed there, you were taking their word for it that the hotel was what it was.
Yeah.
And you would get there and
you weren't staying at
9 times out of 10 it was not
drug-in suite.
They meant to say, they should have said it was a motel, and they said it's a hotel, and you get there and it's roach infested, all sorts of that type of thing happening. Yes, exactly.
So it's like, what activity is going on in the room next to me?
Or phones are nailed down to the table and remotes don't move. You just
exactly.
It was all TVs are nailed down, like all that sort of thing. Yeah, so, did all that.
So you definitely came up from the Chitlin circuit in that experience. as they say.
I say, the Y wasn't the, sorry, Ken, but the Y wasn't the best group, but I cut my teeth on a lot. Like I learned a lot through that whole process.
But that's sometimes the best way to learn.
Absolutely.
And then in reality, if executed well, I was listening to, I don't know how much I love that old blues. And a lot of that old blues, especially
I did not know that.
Chitlin circuit-based music. It's money in those markets if you know
last
how to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, last $2, like some Marvin C stuff, like
oh my goodness,
ghetto blues. You know what I'm saying? But even more classier, Etta James. Like I like blues stuff, but those markets exist, and we even see those blues concerts. It's like, why is that man on stage with Jerry curl and a top hat? And it's like, because it's a market for that.
It's a market for that. A huge market for the blues stuff.
And that's kind of working the corners, working the angles, and really budgeting well.
Yeah.
And knowing how to budget, as you say, the knowing who your audience is, how you push them. The recent Dolomite movie that people saw, he kind of worked that market.
Yeah, he did. And he knew exactly who his fan base was. And he went after that market.
Who your fan base is and who to penetrate.
Yep.
So after you leave that tour, what gets you reignited to say, all right, I like this. I just need to shift who I'm doing it with?
Well, I prayed and was like, God, I don't like this. And I'm not making any money. And it was just obvious to me that I needed to go back to church.
Okay.
And so I ended up, attending a church in the city, and not a month in was I planning their spring concert, fall concerts, meeting with the pastor every Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning, running the music ministry after about 6 months. It was just one of those things that happened. And so, I'm always looking for opportunities. So like, as opposed to an opportunist who takes advantage, I just feel like there's a space for me to grow in this space. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I think church is a great place to learn. I learned everything about sound and lights. I ran the soundboard. I ran the video. I worked with Sister Mary Thomas about how to do video. Like I learned as much as I possibly could. I directed the choir. I did all the things I wanted to do. at the church, so and figured out how to do it.
The Miyagi way of learning production.
I just wanted to learn it, And at that time, I didn't even know why. It was something I gravitated to as an interest. And so when I was planning those concerts, I invited. I'm booking artists at this point. I'm booking people local and out of state, and so I'm managing budgets. All the stuff that I had knew that was a fail on the road. Now I am putting. I'm in a position to do it and learn how to do it well, right? Okay. So I'm doing that, and then a couple of the artists who came that I had performed asked me to manage them, and one artist asked me to manage them, and I didn't know how to manage anybody, but I was just one of those things. I was like, I think I'll figure it out. It sounds interesting, and it sounds like I can build on something like this. Okay. And I believed in the artists that I was working with enough to be like, you need help. And I think I could help you.
Now let's talk about that relationship between artist and manager.
Okay.
Because many artists definitely always say, I just need a manager. And I think for many artists, when they say that, it's like, I need somebody that's going to pay for everything.
And do all the work.
And help me get shows. And help me get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And take only 10%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sometimes artists' interpretation of I need a manager. So it's like everybody in life needs that person. But that person does not exist. So explain the relationship between artist and manager. Independent, because it's different. It goes up the scale different.
It is different. So
let's start from independent, starting from scratch, grassroots. What's that relationship?
Well, I can tell you what my relationship is, and then I can tell you as I grew as a manager what I grew to know about what managers should do, shouldn't do,
services
could do,
provide.
Couldn't do, kind of thing. And so when I first got connected with this one group, and then the band that they worked with, Hot Sauce at that time, I was able to knew that they were talented right away, and then turned them into their own separate group kind of thing. But I just felt like I could be a partner in this, and that, you have the talent, I have the business acumen to be able to get us to another level. Yeah. And so my commitment to them was, as long as we work together in that you do what you're supposed to do, so that I'm going to do these things, and then we're going to grow this brand, I will stay in this with you as long as I can. That was really my commitment. It wasn't necessarily, I'm going to make you a superstar. It wasn't, I'm going to make you a whole lot of money even. It was like, I see some things that I can help with, and we're going to do this together.
Okay. Now, from the beginning, as an artist, I got to ask this question. How much transparency was between the artist and you? Because growing in trust, especially more talented people, they've always trying. Like,
100%.
Were you one of those people that wanted to know the moves that the artist was making, or was it like, I only really am concerned about the moves that we're making together?
No, it was those relationships were 100% transparency, meaning if all the booking went through me, all of the branding went through me, the photo shoots, the videos, the relationships with any labels or any contract signing of any kind, all of that had to come through me. Now they can have ideas about what they want to do. We always had goal meetings, and we set goals every year and what they want to accomplish. And they're part of what they were going to bring to the table and what I was going to bring to the table to make that happen.
Okay.
And then I might add some things based on some things I'm forecasting. So this is going to be, the next big thing. So here's where I think you should think about moving towards, whether it's, speaking or these other available sources of revenue. I want you to focus on these areas because your goal is to make X by a certain amount of time, right? So let's put these things in place to make that happen. So that's kind of how relationships work.
Now, as you're introducing that, I also want to keep ever present that you're dealing with multiple people.
Yes.
And they're creative. So these things change. And like I say, with talented creative people, it's always new ideas that come up every day.
Yeah.
Their cousin in Arizona is like, hey, look at what Puffy's doing. Look at what Beyonce's doing. You can try something like this. My uncle just met, Lil Wayne's cousin. So we can go out to Arizona and talk to him today.
Yeah. I always had a conversation with them about goal setting and a straight and narrow path, and then having these side streets that happen. Yeah. I think as long as we're focused on this, these pop-ups are going to happen, but that's all they are. They're pop-ups, meaning we have these goals, we have this track work, this schedule that we're going to do the year, but you might get a call to go down to Florida and do such and so. Is it in the line with the goals of what we're trying to accomplish? If it is, then let's do it. If it's not, let's take a look at what the advantages are. Is it a pop of money real quick? Can we make a few $1,000s on this? Or is this going to do anything for your brand or from a promotional aspect? How can we utilize it to make it fit into the goal or the goal for the year?
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I focused and reiterated constantly about staying on task. So that when these blips came, I got to open up for Patti LaBelle. Okay, that's great and wonderful. Let's try to utilize that. But how does that work? It's from a promotional standpoint, it's fantastic, but we got to stay on task. And then you'll start to see this thing grow because you're focused on the task at hand. You have a whole strategy. So the strategy was the most important thing to me. And so in teaching that to the artists, they started to see how this thing can grow once you're focused. And not focused on these one-off kind of things that may or may not have to do with the strategy.
The goal.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I love how you just crystallized that. So how did everything work out, just bringing that concept to life?
I think, it worked out really well. We, with the two groups that I managed at the beginning, we did some things that, signed artists aren't doing, so they didn't sign really quickly. We traveled, did lots of touring, did, lots of shows that, only are allowed for signed artists just because of relationships and that sort of thing. We were able to build a brand on both of those groups, and I added more groups as, of course, I went on because you get to make some money at this. But I think that it'd be interesting to have them here to have the conversation. But I think I did well in that the goals that we were trying to accomplish were accomplished. One of the groups was to get signed to a label and be able to, have some creative control and yada, yada. Walked them into the door where they had creative control, got signed to a label, also had distribution waiting to happen, which doesn't happen prior to that. So we were able to negotiate that deal. And they decided they made some decisions that weren't the best and the group broke up. So I did my part.
And that happens as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
also in any business, but especially in this business, adage my mom used to say: every goodbye ain't gone, every farewell ain't forever. So like things come back, and you be surprised sometimes what can get everyone back to the same table. And artists are very passionate and emotional about their art too. So like we're dealing in the business realm, but we're also dealing with in the sensitivity of emotion too, and what they put into it. And different people have different visions, as those visions, as you say, those goals can reset and realign as like just people grow. You know, people have children, people
absolutely,
people recommit themselves to faith in different ways. People commit themselves
people change.
People
just change. And as you grow, and we started, God, the youngest in the hot sauce at that time was, I think, 14. So they were still kids, they were still trying to figure it out, and they're still figuring it out. So hot sauce, for anyone who's listening, is not, they have never broken up. They just have, decided to do some other things took them away from family, children, life, took them away from being able to do the group. But there's always conversations about, getting back together and doing some things. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. So from there, and and it's good that you built the connection with a group like that. And many people are familiar with Hot Sauce here in Detroit. And really a lot of the groups that kind of came out of that. Like, I mean, I think of like people influenced like the Alex Whites and Ideas and Daryl and just so many other
the
people.
Bands, Jukebox, 313 Experience, all came out of those.
Yeah, 313, just that feel. And it definitely had a tone on Detroit culture of young people, young energy, hitting the stage and creating their own music. And then if they do a cover, having like a new spin and taste on it. Yeah. What was your, after those experiences and learning that, what was your take on what's your take on working with artists now?
Well, that's a big leap. So I started working with artists then, and then we did well enough to garner attention. So financial management garnered attention from national labels, production houses, and management companies, and that's how we ended up working with national artists while I was growing the artists that I was working with. And so they were, the synergy of both at the time. And so even like the local regional artists I was working got to work with a lot of the national artists as because of those relationships. So in that, learning, tour management and really learning road management from an international perspective was amazing. And being able to apply all of that now to, what the artists that I was working with underneath Foundation Management had to offer, it's come around circle. So not too long ago, I decided, after being on the road and being in Fantasy Island, is what I call it, doing international tours and traveling and meeting all these wonderful people and having all these crazy experiences out on the road, I decided to get off the road. I realized that I was not building the brand that I had set out to build, that I was always building someone else's brand. And so when I started my company in 2000, it was to build this company into something that could be sustainable for myself and my children and to leave a legacy. And I found myself being attracted to all these other things where I wasn't really building anything anymore. I was just kind of out there handling everybody else's business and not my own. Okay. And so I came off the road in 2014 and decided that I needed to focus back into building my brand and building the company that I started that long ago. And I've refocused into things that I was good at and things I love to do, which is corporate events. And so I landed my first corporate event in 2015, and we're in our 5th year. Wow. Of doing some amazing things. And we do corporate events, production, and staffing now. Okay. So that's my focus. My last artist was the end of 2018. And so I'm no longer doing artist management. Okay. And I'm the happier for it. Hilarious. I do consult. I do get people always inboxing me and asking questions, which is great. I don't stay abreast of all of the rules and labels and all the stuff that I had to know then. And it's a breath of fresh air. I'm not going to lie to you, Kyrie. It's like, I listened to music because I had to for 15, 18 years. Now I listen to stuff because I want to.
That's good.
It's a different animal.
Yeah.
You know, where my ear was always tuned into, you know, changes or notes or how it was received. I'm always looking at charts and who's it was a lot. And so it kind of gave me like a little distaste for music. Wow. I just started to kind of hate music. And just being transparent about it. And I found myself not listening to anything at all.
Wow.
And so as I weaned myself off of having to do it, I'm now starting to re-enjoy finding new artists and because I want to, not because I have to know about it. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Yeah, some cool artists. And
it's a lot of great artists out here.
Speaking of that, that's, kind of one of the things with Piper.
Yes.
You all in the foundation and connecting.
We found hip hop.
We found hip hop. We found hip hop is connecting non-misogynistic women in hip hop to hip hop, like a pure entertainment and a lot of different types of voices too.
Lots of different types of voices,
from DJing to breaking to emceeing and singing and painting. It's an experience.
It is. It's and what I think the name kind of lends itself to people thinking it's just hip hop. But if you know the origin of hip hop, it's about the beginning of music as a whole. And so if you're thinking about what this means, it's just a safe space for women to be able to do what they do without having to worry about anyone challenging or questioning why they do it.
And it started with from a vision. You're working with Piper first off.
I am. So Piper Carter is a client. She's a business partner and she's a friend.
Okay. Now, from what started with the No Misogyny open mic has become a whole movement.
It is a movement, and I don't think people really understand the impact that the open mic had with the foundation of women in hip hop at that time, and the impact of what it's done for other open mics and other performances in the city of Detroit, as a whole. You know what I mean? I don't think people understand that when Piper decided to make these rules, right? There was these rules, and that hip hop folks had trouble with the rules at first. Yes. But you knew she had created a brand enough. When you knew you came to her events, that was the rule. Yeah. And and there was no violence, and you couldn't talk about women. You couldn't call them bitches and hoes, and that was not going to. You can't. You had to follow the rules, and it created this thing, right? And so, and some people like it, and some people don't, and I think that's okay.
And with that, she also really got a lot of support and synergy for giving women so much of that stage in a safer space to perform, because hip hop, as we know, is such a male dominated on stage, at least. I mean, behind the scenes, I think it's nothing but women really usually working it, but on stage and in production, what you see visually is almost all men.
Yeah. It's definitely dominant with men. I mean, entertainment as a whole is still dominant with men. So it also is a space for people like myself who was in entertainment and was behind the scenes. So from a road management, tour manager, artist management, business, entertainment person, it allows for people like me to connect with other people like me. And in the entertainment industry, women who are surrounded by men constantly. Yeah. So if I'm on a tour bus and there's 12 bunks, the 11 of them, and sometimes on the couches in the front of the bunk, they're all men. So we travel in these circles surrounded by men constantly all the time, and then wanting to also make sure we have a voice in that. And from a business standpoint, if I'm walking on a stage of a production crew that might be 50 people and I am the one that's going to be ordering people around, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm talking to old white union guys, and I walk in and they're like, well, who's running production today? And I'm like, it's going to be me. And I revert back to that. We can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. But guess what? We got a show to do. And so being able to have that conversation with other women in the industry, I think is really helpful. And it's a part of the whole brand of We Found Hip Hop.
So March 7th, you all are doing something big.
We're doing something big. It's our 3rd annual We Found Hip Hop. We Found Hip Hop Women. We Found Hip Hop Showcase.
Yep.
It's our third annual, which is crazy because it feels like we just got started. So this is our third year of showcasing female artists in the city of Detroit of multiple genres. So we have singers and dancers and poets and hip hop and DJ and a live all female band.
Okay, I'm with it. It's good synergy. Who are some of the people performing?
Well, we have one of our young, new artist / poet, Sanaa, and she is she's been on all 3 shows, and one of the reasons that we do that is she's so different and unique, and she's grown. She's taken her artistry really seriously, and so we're proud of her in that she has been able to stay true to what she wants to do. She's not conforming to anything of the industry that says she has to do anything, so she's kind of the example of why we do what we do. So she's going to open up the show. We've got Frankie P, which is she's a beast. You know Frankie P?
Yeah, Frankie P rocked the brand of I'm the rapper, she's the DJ for the festival. Good MC. From I'm slipping. What's the art? The Dime School.
Dime, yeah. Well, she came our first year we did the event, and she was at our open mic section. She just came out of the audience. Like, we didn't even know she existed.
Okay.
And so she came out the audience, and we have an open mic cypher section of the event where anybody can come on stage and show their skills, whether it's singing or dancing or rapping. And she came up and she lit the stage on fire. And we were Piper's looking at me. I was looking at her like, where's this girl been? Like, we need to connect with her. And since then, we've been working with her, booking her shows, helping with artist development, putting bands together, doing some promotion, doing a lot of development with her.
Definitely. So this is like, if you haven't, like I always say, the call to action, if you haven't seen women in hip hop and from their own voices, as I sometimes look at what is promoted in women in hip hop, because it's strange. It's like, I guess now there are more women voices in hip hop, but it's like women using the perspective and sexuality of men, like kind of seeing them and sometimes even men writing the lyrics, you know what I'm saying? But like almost like this is like really their perspective. This is where they're coming from, which I guess I can't be one to say if Meg Thee Stallion or Cardi B really feel that way or not, or but
yeah, it's not for us to really.
It's the perspective is definitely from the perspective of like it definitely has the strains of misogyny that that a lot of people question hip hop from the beginning, and challenge hip hop from the beginning. Yeah, as being destructive to our community.
Yeah, it definitely has that. I mean, I can't say that I don't like the music, because some of it I do. But what this particular show and what we find hip hop is about is being able to empower women to be able to do the music that's in their heart to do, whether it's popular or not, whether it's going to be radio or not, because generally you're not going to hear this on radio, right? So it's true to them. So and we help to develop it so that it's palatable for the ear, right? So that it's popular in the ways of production and the look and the sound and all of that sort of stuff. And so, you got people like DJ Problematic,
Black Hottie that was on Unicorns Are Real, and like her, she's a very sexual person. And so like why we added her to the show was because it's not about not being sexual. It's about being able to, if that's what you want to do as yourself, just do you. Yeah. And so we wanted her to be a part of it. One, she's an amazing DJ, and two, her brand is amazing, and she's free. She's free to do her with nobody else telling her if she has to do it or not. I've told you in the beginning of this whole thing that I chase freedom. So I think that's why I'm attracted to this brand. Just people being able to do their gifts the way that they want to do it. So thank you.
Charity Ward is also part of our lineup. If you follow Charity at all, if you don't know Charity, you need to look her up. Charity Ward has been making original music for a while now, and acoustic guitar, really, really great tone on her voice. Her look is amazing, and she speaks true. So she chases freedom as well. Always women empowering songs about life, and challenges. And so her, and then We have Ellie Santiago on the mic. That's also going to host. Ellie's going to host our cipher, our open mic cipher, which is going to be amazing. So we're excited about the whole lineup.
Cool. And it's going to be this Saturday coming up, March 7th. What time?
Doors open at 1:00. Show's going to start at 2:00. We're actually going to present We Found Hip Hop and Women of Foundation Hip Hop. We Found Hip Hop and the Foundation of Women in Hip Hop's film that's actually being considered for the Detroit Free Press Film Festival right now. So we are presenting that. We'll have a discussion about women in business. So myself will be presenting, Stephanie Hammond, which is an entertainment lawyer, will be presenting, and Esther Kim, who is a graphic specialist. And so we'll be talking about branding and marketing and women in those fields, so that we can empower those in the audience who have young girls who want to try to maybe get in the music business, but don't want to be on stage. Yeah. So there's a whole nother area of business and entertainment that we neglect a lot of times because we're just focused on those on stage. So this will be about that.
Yep. At the Charles Wright Museum. You can get there. Make sure doors at 1:00, event at 2:00.
Yeah. And then right following the event, you'll be able to meet the artists and, buy music and connect and take pictures and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Interact. Welcome for the whole family to come to.
It's a family show.
So
it's a family show. Bring your babies.
Bring
your babies.
Yes.
Yep. And they can visit wefoundhiphop.com for all the information and tickets.
Okay. And last couple Detroit is Different questions are the classic ones.
Okay.
So here we go. First car. What was your very first car? Year, make, and model, year you got it.
My very first car was a K car.
Old school.
I bought it for $500. That was like my second year of college.
Okay.
It burnt up on the freeway.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
Where was the first place you went when you got it?
Gosh. I bought it while I was at Eastern, so I would imagine to a party.
Okay. All right. Handle some business.
Working.
Okay. All right. You're the DJ at the Detroit Fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 3 songs. What songs you playing?
Give me the scenario one more time.
You're the DJ. It's the end of the Detroit Fireworks. You get to play 3 songs. Oh. What 3 songs you playing?
Oh, wow. The Detroit Fireworks at the end. People are leaving. I'm probably going to play Prince, 1999.
Okay.
I will probably play Outstanding by Charlie Wilson and the Gap Band.
Okay.
And then probably Frankie Beverly.
Which one?
Before I Let Go.
Okay. All right. Somebody said that last time.
Oh, did they?
Not the Beyonce version. I was like, oh. I'm just messing with you. But you know that Frankie Beverly and May's got a better version. We have a guest in this podcast, so it's like, Frankie Beverly did that song better. Challenge.
Yeah, because it's family, so you want people to, love on each other before they go. I like Beyonce's. I'm not mad at Beyonce's version.
No,
she can't replace Frankie, but she did her own version.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
what's wrong with that? People cover stuff all the time.
A black classic.
That's a lot of balls. Though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the world of covering a black classic, she did a great job.
You picked that one out of all the ones you could have done.
Yeah, I know.
That's some balls.
Feelings or something.
Or something. No, she couldn't do it.
Yeah, happy feelings.
Happy feelings. I like happy feelings. But I think those would be the 3. What are your 3?
Let's see. Most people don't ever ask this, but today I'm feeling well. We're gonna play Good Life.
Oh yeah, Good Life is good.
We will play let's see. In the world of we're gonna play Boss Up and Get This Money just because. And
at the end of the fireworks.
Yes. And then we're gonna play let's see.
Clean version, please.
No, probably the dirty version.
It's the fireworks. You got babies.
Yeah, I know.
It's a family show.
Let's see. What else? What other song would I end it with? I end it with something like I throw back some old school. Let's see. What Motown song would I really want to play? See, because you want to do some Detroit Motown, but I think
I was thinking that nothing came up in my spirit.
nothing Detroit Motown is like, all my favorite Motowns aren't really the Detroit Motowners, but I guess for the 25 Miles to Go by Edwin Starr, even though I know you're not from here, but we gonna play that because I just always like the start of that. I like that. So
you know where my mind went when you asked me that question?
What?
From a production perspective, you want at the end of a program like that, you want to play slow music and get them out of there. So that's why I started with a hype, and then we're gonna slow way down.
Okay.
So they can go home.
No, I'm hyping people up. I'm keeping them there.
Well, that's how I think. It's the end of a production.
From the production world.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm playing? I'm tripping. I'm playing. My eyes don't cry no more. We taking off that.
Okay, we could do that. We could do that. But they definitely gonna start hustling.
They definitely will.
Now I got a whole logistics issue. I got to call Detroit security.
Yeah, I know. You gonna have somebody.
Like turn that DJ off.
It's like we going this way. You hustling the wrong way.
Right. Now you got Detroit police all in a bunch. Got the panties in a bunch.
They gonna be hustling too. This is Detroit.
Not on firework day.
I bet you telling me my eyes don't cry no more in the Detroit is somebody that's on the station gonna be like
they want them people gone
and be like pick the money up
or play that Fox first News. Play it first and then end out
Fox News would be like look at these black police officers dancing.
Look at them go.
Look at them go. This is why you don't need them in blue.
Oh my goodness.
Last question. You can rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
I mean, the only person that comes to mind is Charlie Beckham, and okay. Because I've gotten to know him over the last few years, and his story is one of triumph after tragedy, and he represents to me a lot of people who go through having their life turned away from them, but they held on. You know what I mean? Not only held on, but he triumphed after it. You know what I mean? So he's a great example of, going from, riches to rags back to riches.
Yeah.
He came from a wealthy family. So he didn't come from poverty. So he doesn't have that story, but he fell hard. He fell really hard and got back up.
True. Definitely.
So he's in my head.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that.
And what's your story? What were sign? What? Street sign?
It's real.
I know I'm interviewing you.
I don't know if you know this guy, but like I usually always say, because Detroit is such a different place. You ever met Jimmy Blackman Rutherford? That was
what do I know that name?
The Black Man, I should say more so, not Rutherford, but the Black Man. He was I guess a lot of people know him nationally as the hype man for Kid Rock originally. I think he just did a show not too long ago. But the Black Man is such a interesting guy. I think he captures the essence of Detroit, because it would have to be somebody that's just like, either him. Who are some of these other just like dynamic, interesting people? I mean, Detroit.
You meet so many of them.
Yeah. Detroit has like some very dynamic, interesting people where it's just like you did all of that in one lifetime.
Yeah,
like, it's some like Miss Jane Pittman.
You're
Forrest
absolutely
Gump people
right. I don't know how they do
Detroit.
it.
I just interviewed this lady, Annie Handy. Detroit has a lot of Charlie Beckham. This is one of those few cities where a person could be like, yeah, man, we were sitting like that Black Godfather story in Netflix. I'm like, Detroit has iterations of that over and over and over again.
Yeah, I agree.
Clement Brown from 313. From 13.
You would put him on the Whitworth sign?
Nah, but he was telling a group of young kids, because, he's not from here, but he was telling a group of kids, like, this is one of those few cities where y'all really don't recognize the prowess of blackness here and the opportunities for blackness.
Until you go away.
Yeah, because he's like, people own houses here. He was like, man, I'm from New York and I got family not in New York and Jersey, and you all take for granted because this is one of those cities where like it can be 5 people in the room that may pull out $10,000 cash at the same time. And some of them are working, some of them in the streets, some of them are little streets and working. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like it's the biggest evangelical movements here, the Nation of Islam, Motown, Broadside Press, you know, like one of the examples I said is Detroit's probably the only place where you could be like, I hate that neurosurgeon black guy, and then find another black neurosurgeon. Like, you can't do that in other cities. Atlanta's sort of catching up, I say. But
because we all moving down there. You know, it's a huge Detroit population in Atlanta.
It is.
It is.
It is so different here, the black experience.
I get asked that question of, you know, why do you still stay in Detroit? I used to get that a lot when I was in entertainment in New York and LA and Miami and stuff. And I was like, it's really one of the only cities that I can go to see people like myself who are doing amazing, inventive, non-ordinary things. Like, you know, the hustle thing is real in that, and I hear people say, well, I don't like the word hustle, but it doesn't mean that you are, you know, playing craps on the street. It means that you have a drive and thing in you that you're not going to let anybody stop you, whether you're a neurosurgeon or whether you are, you know, somebody on
washing
the street.
Cars.
And so you're absolutely right on home ownership and, you know, people in prominent positions. You know, at one point, black radio, like it was like, you know, we had the most radio station variety of any city I had ever been to in the United States. Yeah. You can turn on a million different stations. It was black, you know, R&B, hip hop, whatever. Yeah. And so when you leave and you come back, you appreciate Detroit a whole lot more. Yeah, like if you're traveling a lot, and I used to see, you know, and they got one station, or they got one freeway, or they got one, you know, one lawyer that knows, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes, like even you know, the premise for Detroit is different, and I honor them all the time, and R.J. Watkins and what Henry Tyler are doing, but what Nat Morris and them did,
absolutely,
with the new dance show and the scene, like that was rivaling, like people. The premise of what Soul Train was, it was rivaled here in Detroit where more people were watching that, and it built careers for people.
Yeah,
and along with building careers for people, it was on the same stage of like as many major artists would come by, like, you know, I'm going to the new dance show. Like the same artists that would be on Soul Train would be on the new dance show. Like, you don't get that in
we need it
other
again,
cities with black, like for real.
You gonna do another new dance show?
I remember they tried to redo it one time, and
they
I
did.
talked to RJ about it.
It's different. You can't do it like it used to be. You gotta let that go, and you gotta recreate something
it'd be
different.
Like on TikTok or something. Like
it's gotta be kid driven. Like it's a whole different, we're in a whole different
world of dance.
It's gotta be world of dance Detroit style. You know what I mean? Yep. So I thought about it. It's a thing on my idea book.
I'm sure it would.
It's in there.
It could happen. I just wonder how, you know.
Well, now with the challenge of internet, you know what I mean? It's different than, you know, having a dance show where that was the only place you saw it. Now it's everywhere. Yeah. You know, so that's the challenge.
And I'm still surprised, like, when they said, like, yeah, you know, they just give people, I mean, the Soul Train, too. They give people some chicken wings. And it's like, yeah, man, you want to be on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got to the point where they got paid for being on TV from the union. But that was about it.
You got that right. The black ingenuity and creativity. I love it. That's
part of the hustle. Detroit is different.
Thank you, Miss Nina.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think this is my second or third time on.
You've been on the network before. First time on this show.
First time on this show.
Because you're usually on Piper's show, which Piper's show is more. It's more like it. It can be more artist driven or political driven.
It's definitely artist or political driven. Yeah, that's about it.
Detroit is different. Is way more like this person's Detroit story. You know, that's what I want to capture. A lot of Detroit stories.
So, do we have a tagline like "I love Detroit"?
Nah, not
Detroit is different.
There we go. Thank you.
Detroit is different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.